Hello everyone, before we start this video, I wanted to mention that Wicked and Wired is now restocked. I recommend getting this stuff because the Halloween season is starting soon. We have new witch dolls, new cats, new tote bags, hand-whittled wands, handcrafted earrings. We even have handcrafted witch brooms. Everything we sell here is one of a kind, so you need to get here fast before it's gone. So throughout my time on YouTube, I've stumbled upon my fair share of controversial movies and shows. I mean, to be honest, especially nowadays, it's extremely common for shows and movies to have some sort of controversy here and there. But I do not think anything or anyone comes close to the crazy movies created by Ralph Bakshi. Now, you guys might have heard of his more famous one, the one that has been deemed like one of the biggest controversial movies of all time, which is called Fritz the Cat. But out of his whole catalog, he actually has a decent amount of controversial type movies. There was one that was a little bit more on the nose, one that really jumped out at me. I'm not really sure what exactly jumped out at me, but I don't know. You be the judge. Now, the reason this movie's so interesting to me is obviously you look at the picture and think, oh, pure racism. That's what this director was all about. You know, he's a racist, blah, blah, blah. But what really makes this crazy is the fact that Ralph Bakshi is actually someone who believes that this movie, this movie right here was actually against racism. And this movie supposedly has plenty of messages about how people are marginalized and how that's bad. Now, I'm going to be the first to say this movie has some of the most grotesque imagery when it comes to racism I've ever seen in a movie. But again, what makes this so strange is he chose this extremely shocking imagery, but is telling everyone, and has said this to this day, that the messages in this movie were opposite of what it looks like. And that just sounds completely insane to me, and that's why I wanted to talk about this movie. Now, another interesting part about this movie is the fact that it's really well animated. Like, everything in this is really stylized. Throughout the movie, there's a heavy combination of live action and animation, and the animation is very well done, and the live action scenes are well done as well. Honestly, Ralph Bakshi, as just a director in general, does a pretty good job, especially when it comes to the animation. But boy, the amount of racist imagery in this movie really makes you feel queasy. There are moments in this movie it was honestly just hard to get through. You really could just be playing racial stereotype bingo with this movie and get bingo pretty quick. It really feels like they just had a checklist of every racist stereotype and went down the line and made sure that they checked off every single one. So the movie's plot, it starts out as a live action situation. It's about two men played by Charles Gordon's Preacher Man and Barry White Sampson, and they're getting ready to free a comrade from jail. And the companion, played by Miami Vice's Philip Michael Thomas, sits against the prison wall with another prisoner, played by Scatman Crothers. And as they are waiting for their getaway vehicle, they have some time to kill. So Crothers' character tells him a tale about a similar band that supposedly fled a brutal firefight in the neighborhood for the African-American Mecca of Harlem. And instead, Brother Rabbit, Brother Bear, and Preacher Fox discover deceitful preachers employing the promise of revolutionary politics. And in this movie, there are cops who kill and steal, there are mafias, there are gangs, it's full of drug addiction, poverty, and the American dream is set up in such a literal sense. It's just a busty white woman with long blonde hair and a gun in her vagina. Let me clarify. Let me rewind that a little bit. There's a gun in her vagina. That's the American dream, baby. And if we just take a simple look at the three main characters and how they are designed, it's literally the racist white version of a black man. The caricature known throughout early media. And that caricature is actually referred to as what the title of the movie is. And an interesting thing about the title is it was originally the title and then no more, implying that it was about how that stereotype is bad, which is ironic because that stereotype is within the movie. There's even a point in the movie where a woman explains why her man left her and her daughter. Just gonna check off that stereotype off the list. And also another thing, the N-word is just spammed throughout this movie. Like, spammed. As much as it could have possibly been used in a movie, it was used. The very beginning of the movie is actually a black man singing a song called I'm the N-Man. The more and more you learn about this movie, the more hard it gets to understand how Bakshi believes that this has a good, positive message about racism. It's just a lot to take in. You really gotta dig to find that message, and the message is in there. I'm just gonna clarify. There is technically a message in there. Everything else in the movie just blinds you from even trying to find the message. He could have went about this in a completely different way, which, I mean, I'm sure he just wanted the extra shock factor to really grasp people. So let's talk about the production of the movie a little bit. Rolf met another great producer named Albert S. Rudy, and they instantly hit it off, and then Rolf pitched this idea to him about making a satirical adaptation of the Uncle Remus stories. And if you guys don't know what that is, it's a collection of animal stories, songs, and oral folklore collected from Southern Black Americans. And so after he pitched that idea, they agreed to work on it, and production started. And something cool that Bakshi did is he hired several black animators to work on this movie, which back then was quite a big deal because, you know, black animators during that time really struggled greatly to find any work because studios were mainly employing whites. The film itself went through a bunch of different names. There was Harlem Days, and then Coonskin No More, and then they finally settled on the main title of the movie. I don't necessarily know why. I assume just by the title alone, he really wanted to just like hit you in the face with something. The main topic of the movie ended up being a blaxploitation, but that's not the only stereotypes this movie actually has. Throughout this movie, it is chock full of them. I'm not gonna say it's equally stereotypical. Obviously, it's heavy-handed on the blaxploitation, but there are extreme exaggerations of white Southerners, Italians, homosexuals, and even Jewish people. And the fact that Bakshi says the Jewish character was based off of a Nazi propaganda portrayal in The Eternal Jew. He really just went for it, didn't he? Oh boy. Arthur Knight wrote that Coonskin is not anti-black at all, nor is it anti-Jewish, anti-Italian, anti-American, all of whom fall prey to Bakshi's wicked caricaturist's pen as intensely as any of the blacks in this movie. What Bakshi is against, as this filmmaker makes abundantly clear, is the cheats, the rip-off artists, the hypocrites, the phonies, the con men, and the organized criminals of this world, regardless of race, color, or creed. So researching a lot on what people said about this movie and just Bakshi in general, it really seemed like he wanted to make fun of everyone, you know, make fun of the stereotypes of every single culture, race, or any type of person that he was talking about in the movie. Because every character in this movie is just a caricature of what they would be. And like I said before, it's kind of sad because the animation is actually pretty good. The art style is visually gratifying, but holy shit, it's hard to watch. There are moments where it seems like the movie kind of just whiplashes you in different directions. It's very psychedelic and artsy at times, where just things kind of mesh together and move around in weird ways. They make sense sometimes, and sometimes they don't make any sense. The mixture of live action and animation is really just all over the place sometimes, but he has his reasons for it. Like, again, I think Bakshi's a really good director, but I am sure you can assume this movie caused quite a huge outroar. It definitely did. When the film was first finished, Bakshi wanted to do a showing at the Museum of Modern Art. However, the Congress of Racial Equality, or CORE for short, surrounded the building in a large protest led by Elaine Parker. And it just gets weirder because Larry Kardish, which is someone who was at the showing, he said this: they were determined not to like the film. Apparently, some of their friends had read the script of the movie, and in their belief, it was detrimental to the image of blacks. The thing that is so baffling to me is that no one can understand why people are upset. Every time I see someone get interviewed or have a quote about this situation, they were all just like, I don't get it. Like, he had a good message in the movie. I don't understand why everyone's so... How do you not get why everyone was so upset? It's so insane to me. Don't get me wrong. I understand his portrayal of the message. He wanted to give a message, but the fact that they didn't just stop and think, guys, maybe we're going too far here. Maybe this is a little bit too much. I don't know. Following the showing of this movie at the Paramount building in NYC, it was picketed by CORE this time. Elaine Parker spoke on the matter, stating it depicts us as slaves, hustlers, and whores, which it does. It is a racist film to me and very insulting. They demanded that Paramount not release the film, claiming it was highly objectionable to the black community. But again, something else. It just keeps getting more interesting. The NAACP supported the film, saying it was just a difficult satire. And if you guys don't know what NAACP is, it's the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. That is just crazy to me that they actually supported this movie. So I want you guys to think about it in this light, because this is kind of how I'm viewing. Who is this movie for? Because if this movie was, say, viewed by a racist person, right? And maybe Bakshi's goal was just to show how marginalized people are and how terrible it is and stuff like that. A racist person is not going to see that message. A racist person is going to see the black caricature, the other caricatures of different races of people, and then just that's all they see. They're not going to change their mind. They're not going to see the deeper message. They're just going to see the racism. And then on a counterpoint, Jewish people, Italians, black people, mainly black people, because that's the main portion of this movie. But if any of those people would see this movie, would they really think it's good? Like, that's what I don't get. Who is this movie for? Is this movie trying to convince racist people to not be racist? Is this movie trying to uplift people of marginalized cultures? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. So Paramount ended up backing out of distributing this movie. I can only imagine why. And another company actually ended up distributing it, the company Bryanston. And something that's hilarious is this same company that took this movie and distributed it went bankrupt 2 weeks after they distributed this movie. Now, I have no idea if those two things are related, but still, it's just quite funny. So Bakshi himself actually stated all of his frustrations with this distribution company, because he himself said this movie was about blacks for whites, which again, I don't think that's going to work. But anyway, he says, however, the ads displayed it to be for blacks against whites. So all of the promotion and the ads for the movie apparently went in a different direction that Bakshi was going for. And the title was actually supposed to break through the racial stereotypes by its bluntness, but the ad stated the hero and his pals are out to get the man to stop calling him the Coonskin. The movie is provocative, original, and deserves better than being sold as the very thing it's not. I guess I have a question for Bakshi. How do you blame them? You know, because I'm confused as like a viewer of this. I am genuinely confused as to who this is for, as I mentioned previously. So I'm not even surprised that this distribution company was confused on their ads and confused on how to portray this movie just by how it is. And things started getting even worse when a small group of protesters actually started throwing a few smoke bombs into packed theaters watching this said movie. So eventually the theaters and even the Bryanston company could no longer show this film. It was just getting too much hate. There were too many protests. I mean, that's not really a surprise. And the movie kind of faded into irrelevancy. Around like 2004, they tried to repackage it with a different title and sell it, but it completely failed. But I don't know. It's really hard to sit here and just call Bakshi a racist, because I don't really think that's the case. I just think he's extremely misguided and maybe naive is a good word for it. I think he gave way too much faith in the fact that people would look beyond the surface level, because the surface level of this movie is so goddamn loud. And in general, people normally don't look beyond the surface level. So the fact that he believed that people would see the good in this movie is beyond me. I mean, Bakshi has shown time and time again his hate for discrimination. And this movie, supposedly, quoted by him, is supposed to display how awful these things are. Again, I full-heartedly believe that there are great messages and commentaries in this movie, but the problem is most people won't see that. They're just gonna glaze right over it and focus on the surface level. Honestly, I would recommend just watching this movie because of its cultural significance and its controversy. It's so interesting. And also, you can see for yourself and form your own opinion on this movie. I genuinely feel like Ralph Bakshi is a fantastic director, and this movie honestly is art, because regardless of how you view it, it makes you think. It makes people question things, and it makes people talk. You truly need to be mentally prepared going into this movie. I did not show many clips of this movie for obvious reasons. It is honestly hard to find clips of this movie where I feel comfortable showing by how grotesque the imagery is. All this movie is debauchery, crime, sex, drugs, gun, alcohol, like everything. It's just raw, pure, the underbelly of the world. And after researching all of this and trying with every fiber of my being to understand the reasoning behind Bakshi doing this, I can 100% see the message in this movie. But does the message outweigh the racism? That's the big question. So let me know in the comments below. What do you guys think? You think this movie went a little bit too far? You think Bakshi was actually just a genius and everyone's just really, really stupid? Or is this movie just a plain racist caricature that is just poison to people and kind of puts marginalized people down even more? Me personally, I think above all else, this movie is about what lens you view it in. If you view it trying to find a good message, you might happen to find that message. However, if you view it on the surface level, which I will admit most people are going to do that, then you're just going to see a batshit crazy racist ass movie. And it is definitely one of the most interesting pieces of media and discourse I've seen in quite a long time. So again, let me know in the comments below what you guys think. That's all I got for this video. Hope you have a good day.